Kazakhstan is a major player in the nuclear industry, contributing 43% of global uranium production in 2022 and holding 12% of the world's uranium reserves. Despite this significant contribution, the country's involvement has primarily been limited to supplying raw materials. However, Kazakhstan aims to leverage its vast uranium resources to develop a comprehensive nuclear energy sector, encompassing uranium mining, fuel production, and potentially the manufacturing of reactor components. This strategic shift aligns with Kazakhstan's broader goals of achieving carbon neutrality by 2060 and addressing domestic energy shortages. Currently reliant on coal for about 70% of its electricity generation, the country faces mounting pressure to diversify its energy mix and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Nuclear power emerges as a viable solution, offering consistent baseload energy with minimal carbon footprint. Plans for multiple nuclear power plants, including one in the Almaty region, are underway. Featuring industry leaders, the session will address critical topics like Kazakhstan's role in the global nuclear renaissance, sustainable development strategies, and international cooperation in nuclear technology. This dialogue underscores Kazakhstan's ambition to redefine its role in the global nuclear landscape while navigating geopolitical complexities and ensuring sustainable growth.
I believe we shall start the session. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We have a very distinguished panel of presenters. Our first speaker would be presenting online. She's not here with us. Anastasia Bala-Krutika. She's a managing director at Resources Now. I will give the floor to her in a minute. And let me also introduce other speakers of today's panel. We have Askhad Bekenov, who is the director of Strategic and Sustainable Development of Kazatomprom. That's the national operator and the leading uranium producer in the world. We have Aldiyar Tokhtarov. He's the chairman of the Atomic Industry Development Association in Kazakhstan. We also have Mr. Dusibayev. He's the general director of the Chemical Construction Bureau here in Kazakhstan as well. And our speaker will have a very one of the best specialists in geochemistry from SRK Consulting, Mr. Robert Bowell. He will join the panel session after his presentation here as well. So let us start. The way we're going to structure the panel session today, each speaker will present for about 10-15 minutes, and then we'll have time for the Q&A. So please feel free. There will be a distinguished time for the questions. If anyone from the audience will have questions, we'll also more than welcome. Anastasia, now the floor is yours. Thank you for joining us online, and thank you for participating in our session today.
Thank you very much for the warm introduction. Your Excellencies, industry leaders, and colleagues, it's a pleasure to join you for this conversation today, although I wish I could be there in person with you, but I send you my best wishes from London. We are meeting at a time of profound change in global energy systems. One thing is increasingly clear, is that the role of nuclear energy is directly significant to how nations think about long-term energy security, industrial policy, and climate commitments. Around the world, energy systems are being redefined, and not just by the urgency of net zero goals, but by the need to diversify, de-risk, and redesign energy supply chains. While the phrase nuclear renaissance has circulated for many years, it no longer fully captures the scale and complexity of what's underway. This is not merely a return of what came before, but a global realignment. A realignment of technologies, of supply chains, and of geopolitical relationships around energy sovereignty. In the next few minutes, I will distill 4 key points shaping the future of uranium and nuclear energy, from supply chain constraints to geopolitical pricing shifts to investment misalignment and fuel cycle control, and what they mean for Kazakhstan's role in this evolving system. Kazakhstan is not just in the middle of the map geographically, it's central in terms of resource influence, diplomatic balance, and market relevance. So let me start with the first point. What's happening on the demand side? As of late 2024, 63 nuclear reactors are under construction worldwide, with about 85 more in planning phase. Over 40 countries are pursuing new or expanded nuclear capacity, including small modular reactors or SMRs, with generation projected to reach historic levels in 2025. But uranium production, despite price signals about $100 per pound last year, is not scaling at a pace or resilience that is required. And one of the key reasons is that the uranium supply chain is no longer elastic. It's geopolitically constrained, commercially cautious, and logistically exposed to choke points, especially around enrichment. And this is not just a mining problem. This is a structural misalignment between the front-end mining production, midstream conversion and enrichment, as well as the fuel fabrication and delivery. Kazakhstan, as one of the largest producers, has influence. And leadership in today's world means more than tonnage. It means value chain integration into fuel services, long-term offtake structures, and strategic stockpiling architectures. I'd like to now turn to the shifting geopolitical dynamics around uranium. Uranium is no longer traded simply as a commodity on spot price or marginal cost. Russia still controls around 40% of the enrichment capacity, and China has secured about 40% of long-term uranium supply contracts across Africa and Central Asia. Western nations are accelerating procurement and expanding domestic capabilities. But at the same time, aligning these efforts with the growing demand presents challenges that could influence energy security planning. Origin risk, supply chain control, and diplomatic alignment significantly influence and define uranium's strategic value. As a top producer with a unique diplomatic posture, maintaining cooperative relationships with both East and West, Kazakhstan can position itself as a committed and neutral counterparty in a bifurcating nuclear world. And achieving and maintaining customers in the East and West must be architected through bilateral fuel deals, joint ventures, and multilateral storage hubs. My third point focuses on the timing mismatch between nuclear expansion and uranium market incentives. There is a significant temporal disconnect between the long-term projections of uranium demand and the duration of the existing supply contracts. Global utilities and SMR developers are projecting fuel needs extending well beyond the 2040s. Yet, currently less than 15% of uranium supply contracts extend past 2030. There is a mismatch between long-duration reactor commitments and short-duration uranium investment incentives. This is a structural flaw where there is a time frame misalignment between capital and demand because long-term supply is not guaranteed. And managing this requires re-engineering of market instruments. We need to think in terms of multi-decade price floors, sovereign-backed procurement guarantees, or aggregated demand structures that models around the LNG offtake models, for example. Kazakhstan, together with buyers and financial institutions, can help shape these instruments, and in doing so, build market depth and future resilience. And I want to finally turn to another point, from quantity to capability, the fuel cycle itself. While uranium mining is concentrated in a few countries, raw uranium alone does not guarantee energy security. As many of us know, only about 0.7% of natural uranium is the fissile isotope uranium-235, so it must be enriched and be suitable for use in nuclear reactors. For advanced reactors, including SMRs and fast reactors, the fuel needs are evolving. One example is HALEU, the high-assay enriched uranium. This fuel type offers greater efficiency and essential for many next-generation designs. The demand for HALEU is projected to grow around 12 times by 2035, and we're yet to see operational commercial-scale production outside single-source currently, although there is momentum in the space across the US, UK, and EU. Timelines still trail demand. It's is a bit of a chicken and egg dilemma where the lack of fuel puts off reactor development and then delays investment in fuel production. Although raw uranium remains a foundational resource, midstream capabilities are increasingly decisive for energy security. Besides, they determine fuel accessibility and cost. This presents a strategic opportunity for Kazakhstan to reposition beyond an oversupplier to a leading participant in the next generation energy systems. So let me end with this thought. Historically, the Silk Road was a web of interlinked economies bound by exchange, cooperation, and shared interest. Today's nuclear sector requires a similar approach. A reimagined nuclear Silk Road could potentially be a framework for strategic interdependence, one where we cultivate mutual resilience, distributed capabilities, and trusted infrastructure. This vision is about collaboration and reliability in an era of energy interdependence. Thank you.
Thank you, Anastasia. Now let's move to our next speaker. Следующим спикером у нас будет Асхат Бекенов.
Next speaker is Askhad Bekenov, Director of the Department of Strategic and Sustainable Development of Kazatomprom. Good afternoon, distinguished participants. I'm very happy to see all of you. And when I learned that we are having as the last session, I expected that we'll have only a few people, as it usually happens. But now I see that we have a wide audience. And I believe that we have only those who are really willing to listen some useful things about our sector. For me, it is a great honor to introduce our approaches to use that are exercised by our company in the issue of sustainable development and the participation in global nuclear agenda and the strategy for upcoming 10 years. You may know now, globally, within a global green agenda, the importance of nuclear energy as a source of basic generation for low carbon economy gains new. Since some analysts speak about the second nuclear renaissance, and in this regard we can see that this sector possesses sustainable positive trends toward the growth of consumption of our uranium products, and as for now, nuclear energy becomes a part of a global policy in the sphere of green energy. And in many countries, the nuclear sector, nuclear energy is again considered as a source of basic generation, the basic load. New nuclear power plants are being constructed in many countries of the world which never used the nuclear generation. And now they pay significant attention to it. And globally, we can see that nowadays, in accordance with IAEA, about 62 new reactors are being constructed. All this proved that the attention to this topic will keep on increasing. And also, we observe that nowadays that those countries who, after the accidents of Fukushima, closed their nuclear programs, they restarted them. For instance, Japan is restarting their suspended reactors, as well as operational life is expanded, and the recovery of previously wasted reactors. And at COP28 at Dubai, several countries, about 25 countries, have taken an obligation to triple nuclear generation. Last year at Baku, more than 5 countries has joined, including Kazakhstan, who joined this global initiative. And that proves that nuclear energy becomes a key instrument to achieve carbon-free future. And in this sense, we can see that it's not only, we can see it not only from the position of regulating state authorities, and we also see the interest of financial institutions that provide more for longer money for lower interest rates to finance such projects. And also we observe the growth of interest to the nuclear generation from technological giants like Oracle, Microsoft, and other companies who hits interest and create sustainable demand for our products. And being the biggest producer of natural uranium, we understand our most important role in the development of the sector. And as part of our activity, what we are doing, we have reviewed our strategy, development strategy. Previously, our strategy that was approved in 2018 up to 2028, this strategy, development strategy, was the response to the challenges that we faced at those times. First of all, it was so the market was there was overproduction in the market because at that time many of the countries they were terminating their nuclear activities in their countries because of the event in Fukushima. So that's why what we did, we optimized our extraction, our production, and we were reviewing our sales activities, and that's why we tried to cool the market and to establish the balance between the supply and demands. Also, we were trying to enhance our marketing functions. We were expanding our sales channels. We were developing the best practices in our business activities and developing our corporate culture. And because of all these activities, we were able to establish balance at this market. And the price for uranium in 2018, it was about $25. And I hope that all these activities that we undertook helped to balance the prices. And in 2024, the price for uranium was about $88. During this period of time, we expanded our sales geography. We added more than 60 countries. We added 6 new countries to our portfolio, sales portfolio, 14 new clients. And Aldiar, our former colleague, he was engaged in these activities. We added to our sales portfolio 6 new countries, 14 new clients. We also expanded our logistics. We used the North route to supply our product to the European countries, but as part of this previous strategy, we diversified our logistics and we started to use the middle corridor. And in 2023, more than 64% of the supplies were done through this middle corridor. We diversified our business processes, and independent rating agencies proved these activities, and all our achievements that we were able to achieve allowed us to balance the prices and bring the market to more or less stable condition. But the market is changing, the sector is changing. We are facing new challenges now, and in general now we have reviewed our strategy. To review our strategy, we are looking at the new trends. The global trend is that there is an increased demand for the nuclear energy all over the world. New markets are emerging. There is a population growth. Technological development is ongoing, and it results into the new sustainable demand for our products. So that's why in the short term, we believe that the nuclear market is balanced as of now. But by 2030, we envisage that the market in general, the supply and demand balance will be stable. But after 2030, we envisage that because of the natural depletion of the natural resources, there will be distortions in the market, and the supply will not be catching up with the demand. So at present, we are also looking at geopolitical changes all over the world, and it means that we need to adjust the development of our company, the development strategy of our company. That's why what we did, we reviewed our development strategy, and for example,
Last year, when we were analyzing the market, we saw that there is a need to fill in those sectors, those stages where Kazatomprom as a company can bring additional value to the sectors and processes. That's why we identified the main value in our strategy is the increase and building the long-term value for our shareholder and all the other stakeholders. Also, we are paying a great attention and to the replenishment of the resource base, because I mentioned that in 2030 and beyond, there will be the decrease in resources. And to be prepared for this mismatch between the supply and demand and to be a part of this process, we need to adapt our strategy. Also, I want to highlight that if we want to achieve our first goal, what we are doing, we are planning to conduct large-scale exploration activities, because in Kazakhstan we still have white spots, so unsurveyed resources, and we are going to invest in the exploration activities that will allow us to remain as a global leader in the supply of the natural uranium to the market. Another key principle, our slogan is value over volume. What we mean is that for the company, it doesn't mean the volumes that we are producing. What is important is the value we are bringing into the market. We are more focusing on the organic development and this year we can see our big successes in this regard, because first of all, we got several licenses for exploration activities in several fields, and also Kazatomprom in its new strategy, in its new vision, is planning to study and participate in the projects in the foreign markets. Kazatomprom is the leader in the sector with great competencies. We can export these experiences, knowledge, and competences to the foreign markets. But of course, much depends on the cost effectiveness of these projects, foreign projects. Also, what I mentioned, taking into account the current geopolitical changes, we see the opportunity for Kazatomprom because of that. Anastasia mentioned already that in the nearest decade, the priority will be not only uranium production, but also next processing of the uranium. So for the next decade, we are planning to study the opportunities of how Kazatomprom can be engaged in the next stage of processing of extracted uranium. That's why we are going to increase competencies in the marketing activities, because this is a new activity. This will be a new activity for us because we are dealing with the extraction of the natural uranium, but not processing. But that's why we are going to be partnering and engaging with this kind of projects, and taking into account the geopolitical changes. So there is a great opportunity for us to enter these markets, because we can see that most of the Western markets and companies, they are already talking about their strategies, talking about expansion, building new entities. We are talking about conversion and enrichment of the uranium facilities, and we are thinking about participating in this kind of projects. Also, we are talking about fabrication of the fuel. Kazatomprom has the technology, and we are producing already Alpha 3G, so compilations for the Chinese nuclear power plants. But in future, we are thinking about the production of another types of fuel for another types of the nuclear reactors. Also, Kazatomprom owns Ulbinsk nuclear plant, and we have acquired a lot of competencies in all the areas, geological science, research, and so we are talking about processing of tantalum. And we are taking gain up more than 30% of the market, and taking into account of beryllium, we are taking 30% of the beryllium market, and so that's why we will be paying a great attention to establish the resource base for this kind of metals and processing of this kind of metals, especially at Ulbar processing plant. And also we are talking about byproducts because we have a lot of byproducts. There are a lot of metals in the byproducts, and talking about the global trends, we can see that these byproduct metals, they are of value, and in the next decade, we would like to start to research these byproducts and metals in these byproducts, and how we can extract these metals from the byproducts. The fourth strategic goal is diversification of sales and enhancement of the trading function. Here, Kazatomprom, as part of the previous strategy, implementation of the previous strategy, we have certain achievements already. We reduced the number of deals through traders. We are enhancing the functions of our own trading house. Also, we would like to diversify our sales portfolios. We would like to have the portfolio between the geography of the sales, and we would like to enhance the image of Kazatomprom at the international arena. Another important area in the current agenda is what we are going to do as part of our new strategy. We would like to improve the best business practices, and we would like to pursue the ESG principles. Kazatomprom, we are already the leader in implementing ESG principles. We have certain achievements already. We got the ratings of S&P Global. We were rated, we got the scores of 48, and this is the best score in the region and in the sector. Also, we got the CDP assessment of the environmental risks, and it was a B score. This is the highest score in the whole Central Asia countries. Another success is that we were included in top 500, including the Time magazine, as the best companies as the companies of the sustainable growth, and we were ranked as 126, but in the mining sector we were ranked as 6. It means that Kazatomprom is moving in the right direction, but still we do not want to stop. We are planning to further develop, and we would like to develop sustainably. And here I would like to mention here Kazatomprom, we have approved the decarbonization strategy. We were the first company to approve the strategy of water resources management. This year we are planning to approve the strategy to manage the climate risks, and all these approved strategies and programs will help us to be the leader in the sector and to ensure the development for our shareholders. That's it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ashat. And the next speaker is Aldiyar Takhtarov. He is the chairman of the Association of the Nuclear Industry Development. Aldiyar, the floor is yours.
Наверное, тут у нас много больше.
Mainly, probably,
There are much more people sitting with earphones when speaking Russian than there was an English presentation, so that's why I'm going to continue in English. So, really happy to be here. Thank you all for all the interest in the nuclear sector and uranium mining sector in Kazakhstan. I believe I'm going to be quite brief with my presentation, so I'm happy to give out a couple of my minutes to Ashat with previous presentation. Today I'm presenting at the name of the Atomic Industry Development Association, which is quite new. We were created last year, so that's why I will start with a brief introduction of the association. So our main mission is to bring together our industry players together and give out their voice to the government bodies in Kazakhstan to enhance the sustainable development of the industry and the capacity building of our own domestic industry, not only in Kazakhstan but also in the region of Central Asia. So here you can see our main goals. So it's basically to become a platform that stimulates the development of nuclear energy and industry sectors in Kazakhstan and Central Asia, as well as become a platform that can provide transparent and deliverable information to the industry players and to the stakeholders worldwide. So, and also is the support the business community, so that because sometimes the region or Kazakhstan can be, scary a little bit to come and invest in. So we want to show that it's not as unknown and scary as it might look from the beginning. Okay, so first of all is the nuclear power plant. It's a big development. I would say it's not that recent since we had our discussions about the construction of nuclear power plant. So early discussions were held even in late 1980s. Then we had our first attempts starting in 1990s. And again, in the end, we held the referendum last year in October, where we got really a big public support for the development of nuclear energy generation in Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan, which is a really important player in uranium mining and nuclear fuel production, as my colleague Ashat said before. So now we go to become an important player in the nuclear energy production, which is a big success for us, for all the nuclear people in Kazakhstan who were really willing to move forward for many years already. So here's just a couple of ideas which we know all this narrative that nuclear energy is green and sustainable and is supporting the decarbonization agenda in the world. But what we believe in is that NPP can become a backbone for the industrial production in Kazakhstan, because since we had a really big development with intermittent energy sources like solar and wind, and it became really successful, we understand that we need sustainable baseload generation that will support not only the development of the so-called green energy or renewable energy, but also which will provide energy for the development of industrial sector, for the development of metallurgical plants which are struggling to start their investment in Kazakhstan right now, and also development of other energy hungry investments here in Kazakhstan. So that is not only the case for other industries, but also for the nuclear industry and nuclear components supply inside Kazakhstan. Our big focus and big hope is that we become a big localization hub for the world's nuclear components developers, producers, who will see an opportunity of bringing their technologies here in Kazakhstan and start producing them from here and supplying to the world. So, not going deep into the nuclear power plants, since we're at MINEX, let's go to the uranium mining. So, uranium mining is and was a big thing in Kazakhstan since the 2000s, and we have become a really important player in the world. So that's a big effort of all the generations of Kazatomprom management, and I'm really happy to see that current management is developing a new strategy and still having it aligned with all the work that was done previously. So here there was a great presentation by Ashat describing the uranium mining development, and here are a couple of things that have been maybe the most significant recent things to happen here. So in Kazakhstan, we had a really big event, which is the creation of Nuclear Energy Agency, which was announced by the president about a month ago, and now it's in a very active stage of establishment and approving of its structure and its work plans. So it's not the first time we have a nuclear energy agency, but I believe that this time it will come to its form and take all the responsibility on bringing together the nuclear industry stakeholders in Kazakhstan. Why it is important for you, for the people interested in uranium mining in Kazakhstan, or who are the stakeholders and suppliers for the uranium mining industry, because there's a one-stop shop from the government bodies which will take care of all the matters related to uranium. Since before, uranium exploration was within the Ministry of Industry and Construction, and the mining was within the Ministry of Energy. Now there is a special agency which mandate has the uranium mining things included. So another thing that is being discussed right now within the legislation framework is the enhancement of national operators' role of delivering the uranium mining and exploration assets development in future. So the key amendments that are proposed is basically the priority exploration rights for Kazatomprom, and as well as the shift of ownership rights for the future subsoil use contracts renewals, which may affect the joint ventures that Kazatomprom currently has, and also that will take over the newly found uranium deposits within the within the complex mineralization, or some deposits that have other metals as their main production. So currently, this issue is under discussion within the parliament and development of their future form. It was initiated by the parliamentaries in Kazakhstan, and so for the discussion of enhancement of Kazatomprom's role of the national operator. There are various opinions regarding this thing that are coming back and forth, and this might be a matter of different discussion. These are just the key takeaways for the current matter to be discussed. So, going back from there to the future of mining in Kazakhstan. So here is quite an interesting table. It was not created by me. It was created by the IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency. It's in public domain. There's a name of it like in the on the bottom of the document, and this is just the first part of a 3-page table. Here, what we can see here that although there are many uranium, potential uranium mining deposits being developed, there is a uranium economic prospectivity ranking. And here we can see that among many other countries, there are very few which uranium prospectivity is described as high. So here we can see that Kazakh deposits are considered as high. Also, Niger, unfortunately, many of you, we know what happened in Niger during recent half a year, I would say. So right now, maybe Niger is not in the position to become an investment hub. And also, apart from Kazakhstan, there are a couple of other places, like in Australia and in the United States, are considered as moderate or high. I encourage you to download this tech doc, which may be useful for uranium developers or prospectors being interested within that. Why we were describing that we see the potential in Kazakhstan. We see that the big effort is done by the National Atomic Company. And we see that Kazakhstan is hungry for bringing new investment and coming into a position of encouraging its role of world behemoth for the uranium production and nuclear fuels now. I really support the recent developments within Kazatomprom on the diversifying the business directions, which are the nuclear fuel cycle, which Kazatomprom is, in a very natural position to become a world player in. Also, we're really keen to see the new developments in country for developing our nuclear industry and for the supply for the nuclear industry. It's not only the mining and the deposits, it's not only the nuclear energy, but there is a big amount of business which is concentrated around this already existing or newly created businesses in Kazakhstan. For you, the international community, or for our local companies who are keen to see the new developments or who wish to become a part of that, we can introduce our platform, which become the I would say a bridge between the industry, the think tanks in the industry, and the suppliers, and the government bodies with the international community. So in case you have any questions, in case you have any potential or opportunities that you want to develop or explore, feel free to reach out. We'll be happy to chat. And one more thing that I wanted to add, I actually was really impressed by the presentation that Anastasia made previously, that within the new developments in the worldwide nuclear industry, there's a bigger role for nuclear fuel supply chain, and which is not getting enough attention, in my opinion, right now. So right now, we see that Kazakhstan can become a much more important player than it is even right now. So thank you for your attention, and happy to answer the questions. Thanks. Okay.
Thank you, Aldar. Наш следующий спикер – это
Our next speaker is Dusibay Bolshan, Director General of Design Bureau of Chemical Machine Building Industry. Good afternoon. In the slide presentation, we have seen that Turkey has become turned from newcomer and became within the list of five. They have 5 reactors, and 4 more are constructed. And Turkey can become a good new partner for Kazakhstan. And Kazakhstan is also the best partner for them without considering Russia. So the future needs, and I made some calculations. If we consider minimum how much natural uranium will be required, 4.8 capacity, even for these 2 states, locations. First power plant will be cast in Iraq. Actually, 180,000 tons per year will be required. But not only Kazakhstan. If we get from Kazakhstan only 5 to 8 tons, it's twice more than Uzbek uranium. And where we can get these amounts? Actually, this presentation has been prepared for Turkey, for Turkish governmental authorities. We demonstrated how nuclear fuel cycle operates. Maybe they have not been thinking about it. And my previous figures that 40% of costs falls for uranium mining, 10 for conversion, isotope enrichment 40%, and fabrication of nuclear fuel is 10% of total costs. So these are the costs of nuclear cycle, nuclear fuel cell. And what is the cooperation between Kazakhstan and Turkey in 2025? At the left side, here we are mining uranium together with Russia, and then we convert it and enrich it in Russia, and fuel is produced, power plant is constructed, and then Turkey gets electricity. Now this plant is Russian, and I'll not exploit on it. And in the middle right, cooperation in the zero stage, despite considering that we are visiting Antalya for research purposes. So what do we propose? Let us start with the conversion. It is a Turkish flag appears, a conversion is a quite known operation. It is also done in Kazatomprom. The time for contract delays last year when Erdogan visited Astana on the 2nd July at the CEO summit, Turkish colleagues asked what could be the importance of your conversation with Tokayev, and I said, don't distract anything. Try to get a uranium contract.
The contract was not achieved, but that's why we are proposing to Turkey, let's cooperate at stage 2, conversion stage, because this kind of cooperation can be arranged quite quickly. So then for the years 27, 28, then we can shift cooperation for enrichment and so on and forth. The Turkish flags are these two stages, stage 1 and stage 2. So I didn't elaborate on the technical details. I put the Turkish flag here because this is the American tradition. Show the flag and how it can be done, how this cooperation can be arranged. This is for us to resolve together with the Turkish side, of course. Next, we are talking about fabrication because it's also available for us in Ulba plant that was mentioned. We can fabricate the fuel quite easily, and it means that we can cooperate in 3 stages with Turkey already, and in the next years we can cooperate with them. So in all the 4 stages except the enrichment, because we had 2 joint ventures with Russia, International Enrichment Center, but Kazatomprom terminated this cooperation. So there was a joint venture for enrichment, but so far we don't have it now. So it means we can cooperate in 4 stages. It means that Kazakhstani Turkish flags can be at all the 5 stages, including the construction of the nuclear reactors, of course, including the training of the staff and so on and so forth. This strategy was developed without Turkish flags, of course, Chinese, Russian, Japanese flags. This strategy of cooperation was approved long ago, and we were following the strategy of cooperation, but due to several reasons, we forgot this strategy, this cooperation, and I came to Kazatomprom in 2000, and I proposed to Kazatomprom, let's develop all the technologies, because mining is okay, production production is okay, but we need to be engaged in conversion, enrichment, fabrication, construction of the nuclear reactors, and so on and so forth. But in 2000s, the idea was that Western partners would help us, but it was a failure actually, and besides 2,000 tons of the fuel tablets, so we failed in all the other sides. But if we are talking about cooperation with Turkey, we can follow this strategy of cooperation, and they are actually ready for that. Rosatom trained 10,000 specialists in nuclear energy in Obninsk city, but the Turkish guys, so they assess their training quite reasonably. So because maybe they were trained what buttons to press at the nuclear reactor, but actually we are ready to train the specialists fundamentally as we did the training for our specialists. But of course we need to establish these educational and training programs in our universities, Turkish universities, engaging Russian ones probably. So that's why that's my vision of the strategy of cooperation with the Turkey. Now Kazatomprom is selling the uranium oxide. At the next stage, Kazakhstan should sell only conversed uranium. Next stage is to sell just the enriched uranium. Next stage is to export just technologies and not to sell uranium just as it is. Because why we need to produce such resources, and some people, they were telling that by 2030 we would not need uranium at all because there will be modern reactors that the natural uranium will not be needed anymore. So we have such messages from time to time that uranium era will come to an end very soon. So that's why we need to think about the following, that our uranium will not be in demand for many, many years ahead. When we are talking about increase of the nuclear generation 3 times, nobody is talking about increasing 3 times the uranium production, and because Kazatomprom told that we will not be able to extract to produce 3 times more of uranium. Let's junior companies be engaged in that. And on behalf of Kazatomprom and Kazakhstan, we are ready to cooperate with all the countries, Western, Eastern countries. But this is the proposal that we submitted to Turkey, this type of cooperation. So, for example, talking about Uсть-Kamenogorsk, Stepnogorsk, in the south we have plants, and Uralsk we have partners that I present now. So West Eastern machinery building plant, Stepnogorsk plant, Rosatom bought this plant last year. Everyone was happy in Stepnogorsk that they belong to Rosatom now, but the profitability is very low now, and Rosatom thought about the producing of tetrafluoride at this plant, and 1 week ago they confirmed the relevance of this project, meaning that we can move forward with the Turkish side, with Rosatom or not. We need to produce tetrafluoride in Stepnogorsk plant for sure. This is step-by-step implementation plan. What are the months for the implementation? This is our technical team, the core technical team. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.
The concluding presentation of this panel session is Dr. Bowell from the SRK Consulting. SRK Consulting is one of the leading consulting agencies for providing CPR reports, technological consulting, and Mr. Bowell has a very deep experience working with uranium mining and ISR technology in particular.
Thank you. So, we've heard a lot about the direction of ISRs, but one question that needs to be asked is, are they working as well as we'd like them to work? We've heard about peak uranium happening in the next 7 years. Can we actually improve on a proven technology. So ISR has been developed now over the last 50, 60 years. It was mainly developed in the USSR. And, Uzbekistan had the first commercial plant. Over time, there's been byproducts proposed from different operations. There's been a change in lixiviants and reagents over time. There's been an expansion to look at copper production, and that's certainly a standard approach now. And in the last 10, 20 years, there's been an expansion into scandium, rare earth elements, even precious metals. Conventional technology. But with any conventional technology, you have to ask, are we doing the best we can? Typically, operations are quite happy with quoting recoveries of uranium from the ground of 50, 60%. If they're using alkali reagents, even less. And so this talk is around some of the ideas that have developed with working on these projects in looking at some of the problems which restrict recovery of metals by in situ leaching, and perhaps some solutions that we should be trying. So the first one comes in the planning stage. Very often we sterilize portions of a mineralized zone which is above the water table. The conventional thinking being that because we have less than the minimum required saturated thickness, or because zones are frozen or simply dry, that we cannot leach them. This is very common in many of the Arizona copper projects that I work on. And there what we do is aquifer enhancement, where we recirculate the solutions and we apply a sweep efficiency to the rocks above the aquifer in order to improve the recovery of copper in that particular case. A similar argument could be made in uranium projects. Oh, come on. There we go. In some of the uranium sandstone deposits, this could also be a problem. At the Kyagda project in eastern Russia, we had a similar problem where more than half of the paleochannel was sterilized, partly due to the presence of a lake and partly due to mineralization being above the water table or being frozen. There, we recirculated ISR brines and then drew them back by pumping into the flooded areas of the aquifer in order to extract the uranium. We can, therefore, apply this kind of technology of injection of waters to unconventional ISRs, which might be situated in open pits, such as the Fat Jack in Wyoming, or to underground mines, such as San Manuel in Arizona, where we've successfully done in situ leaching of copper in a block cave zone. All of this is predicated on understanding the geology, which can be quite complex. The photograph I show there is actually from a deposit in Western China I visited. These are uranium-bearing rocks. Obviously, they're not ones that are going to be leached very easily. Typically, what we're looking for in these sandstone channels is a roll-type front or a clear definition between oxidized and reduced ore. Where that situation gets modified, or we're dealing with large distances between the limb and the front part of the mineralization, then we need to look at different methods, perhaps of laying out wells in order to compensate for geology. And in some cases, as in the photomicrographs there, we also have the challenge that we may be dealing with clays which can partially blind off the uranium minerals. And it might very well be that we have to use some form of fracking in order to expand those clays prior to in situ leaching of the uranium. A lot of the geological complexities can be overcome by optimizing the well design and evaluate different options on paper, on a computer initially, through a detailed hydrogeological study. And I happen to do a lot of my work with hydrogeologists, particularly Dr. Vladimir Ugoritz, who's my co-author and a specialist in the hydrogeology of in situ leaching. We also look at the surface operations. Very often there's many of the problems which exist and the inefficiencies actually come down to the instrumentation at the injection point within an ISR. And so a very common problem is instrumentation failure within an ISR, which can lead to over pumping of injection or uncontrolled injection. And very often this can be simply rectified by an audit of the control system and by removing any redundant instrumentation as the project develops. Very often there can be precipitates within wells, and this certainly affects most, if not all, well fields. Understanding the mineralogy and the chemistry of the problem in which lixiviant is not circulated due to precipitation or due to the issues of CO2 gas, which can build up. And one thing that people are not aware of is that CO2 is actually not a very soluble gas, particularly in acid environments. And it takes up a much larger volume as carbon dioxide gas than it does as carbonate in solution. And so it can form pockets of resistance or pockets of air within the ISR. This is particularly true where we have carbonate rocks, and this is an example of pumping within a system. So we can see here in the graph, we've got a series of troughs and peaks where we've had very variable pumping. When we've added acid to the system, we've digested carbonates. The photograph of the rock specimen above the graph is the material we were trying to leach, in which there was secondary calcite. That consumed acid, but because carbon dioxide was produced, it prevented flow in the system. And so we had to have a push-pull type approach with fresh water in order to flush carbon dioxide out. Not a particularly efficient way of doing it. We can get a reverse problem, but no less problematic with alkaline leaching because of the reaction between gypsum and sodium carbonate. And where we get large amounts of gypsum, particularly in deposits where we see a lot of carnotite, then we can get much lower metal extraction than if we allow a certain amount of free flow air in there in order to reduce the effects of this precipitation. One of the challenges with most uranium deposits is that uranium is present in a reduced form, and very often it can be kinetics which is limiting the success of the ISR. And so a very common approach is to apply an oxidant. This really needs to be applied after test work once we've optimized the nature of the oxidant. And there are many different types that can be used. Natural bicarbonate ions with oxygen, dissolved oxygen in water can be used. We can use bacteria such as Thiabolaici, which occur naturally in any channel where there's pyrite. In Australia, ozone purging has been tried, but the challenge with that is you need closely spaced wells. And of course, sodium nitrite has been a traditional oxidant applied in much of Central Asia and Russia over the last 60 years. With all these problems, what we end up with is peaks and troughs within the ISR production that doesn't meet the planned events. And consequently, we see very variable production compared to modelling records. And one of the big challenges is the collection of data which goes into ISR production planning. And if the wells aren't spaced closely enough, or if there's a problem with the assumptions made with hydrogeological modelling, such as in the upper left diagram there, where we assumed very free flow and equal flow between each of those four aquifers, then we get a profile like that graph in the center there, which shows highly variable recovery from each of those different fields. One method that we found to overcome this is to actually improve hydraulic conductivity within sandstone channels. This can also be applied with fractured granites when we're looking at extraction of copper by ISR, or where we're looking at mafic volcanics or mafic intrusives with ISR for nickel and cobalt production. And this is where we actually simulate a high injection of water at high energy in order to improve fracturing between the injection well and the extraction well. And this allows us then to pump more fluid through the system to get better conductivity with the mineral hosts for the metals we're looking to extract. One of the big challenges for most producers is the pattern of wells. This is obviously very sensitive as it influences cost. But in all these channels that we look at, we have to look at the most appropriate pattern. In this particular example here, you can see there's a paleo channel in which initially we, in the northern part of the channel, because of a very uniform nature of the sandstone host for the uranium, then we were able to use wells in line. As we moved to the south of the area, the sandstone bifurcated in which the uranium occurred. And so in order to get efficient leaching of uranium, we had to go to a hexagonal display of 6 and then 12 wells in order to improve and maintain efficiency in uranium extraction. We also had to change the lixiviant concentration over the single paleo channel, as well as the addition of an oxidant in the south as well for the deeper ore zone. So even in the space of one paleo channel, all these conditions may have to change and need to be monitored while production happens and not seen as a passive system. So when I say we can increase the density of wells, we can go from a simple pattern where our zone of influence can be captured quite adequately by 3 recovery wells. And that may move outwards to 6, 8, 12, 9 wells, depending on the complexity of the geology and the kind of chemical treatment we want to apply. And this can include in changing the oxidant or the strength of the lixiviant. And it's no less an issue when we come to restore ISR wells. There are many methods which have been proposed. This is an important and now critical requirement of most companies to propose the methods of cleaning prior to ever starting production. One of the big problems is the formation of solids like this, and this can require long test work, such as shown in the upper photograph there, where we simulated a column for a couple of years in the laboratory to look at leaching, extraction, and then closure of that particular flow path. There are very active ways of doing it, which have been tried by many people, using RO and ion exchange to take salts out of the system, looking at recirculation of clean solutions, or even adding reducing agents, such as bisulfide or sodium sulfide, to restrict metal reactivity within the water. And there's also now focus on bioremediation. We can have very passive restoration that takes place. This is an example in an old mine again, where we did a copper ISR, 10 billion litres of entrained solution within the system. This system we've been tracking for the last 15 years as water mixes, and eventually was daylight in the pit. This is a tracking of the pH from that pit. As you can see, we don't get a linear effect, and there are periods in our initial predictions where we were recording a slightly higher pH than we established, and that is because of the uncontrolled symmetry of the underground mine that we had to make assumptions around in our calculations. No less an approach of passive remediation has been carried out on several of the ISR projects in Central Asia. This is a study that was published by Igor Solodov, in which he looked at the recovery over time from the Burkina ISR after it was closed, and he followed the system for approximately 15 years to see how far out the solutions went and how long it took in order to get back to close to background chemistry. So ISR projects have a number of problems which influence not only their technical feasibility, but also the efficiency at running them. But they do have solutions, and this technologies continue to be developed with a real focus on more efficient production, more efficient control of solutions, and greater protection of the surrounding environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Volo. Please. Please join us here on the stage. Let's first call for the questions, if there are any questions from the audience. If not, we'll... Okay, let me start with some of the questions while I was listening. Several times it was mentioned in actually almost all of the presentations, and I think Mr. Dusibayev also mentioned that a lot of countries are building nuclear power plants, and the the demand is definitely there. So the deficit for the nuclear and for the uranium is definitely coming. So Mr. Bol, the first question would be to you, because again, the NPP would not run if there is no enough uranium in the world. So the question to you, in terms of the geological landscape, which countries you think are the most advanced in order to bring the uranium out of the surface as fast or as efficient, economically efficient as possible?
Certainly Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan are still leaders, and I think for some decades to come will continue because they have the infrastructure, the technology, they have the expertise, they have the staff. They've been doing this for a very long time. Canada certainly has very large high-grade resources, but they're also very expensive to extract that uranium. And so its development will be very much price sensitive, whereas in Central Asia and in Russia, there's much more of an emphasis on in situ leaching, which is more cost effective. Likewise, in the United States, there's been a tendency to push for in situ leaching of deposits, perhaps with less success than there has been in Central Asia because of the nature and the age of the uranium deposits versus those in Central Asia. So I don't see too many new players bringing a large amount of uranium to the market in the near future. There's certainly a lot in West Africa, but I think it's going to be a while yet before anyone's comfortable putting in the kind of infrastructure and the kind of cost required to build or to rebuild a uranium industry there, including in Niger, sadly.
Yeah, thank you very much for your answer. Anastasia, if you're online, I think you mentioned in your presentation about the importance of the strategic independence of the country. I like the phrase, and I think, Aldiyar, you mentioned in your presentation about the importance and perspective of Kazakhstan becoming a local hub. So Anastasia, I think the question is counted to both of you, to Anastasia and maybe Aldiyar, you can then add. Anastasia will answer from her expertise working globally, and Aldiyar, maybe you can add to that question in terms of the working here in Kazakhstan. Anastasia, as you said about the importance of the strategic independence, what do you think are the key priorities and which stages of the nuclear fuel cycle Kazakhstan should develop, and what challenges are there in terms of the current geopolitical turbulence, a lot of, and again, because as you know, uranium is quite a strategic and critical mineral in the world.
Thank you for that question. What I will say is it really depends on what each country wants as a part of their offering. That is to leverage the core strengths and capabilities, understand where the shared goals and shared interests are. Nevertheless, there are as many opportunities as there are as risks and challenges, but we should really be focusing on the shared goals and opportunities there. As for the strategic interdependence, our modern energy systems are deeply, deeply interdependent and interconnected right across the energy ecosystems and value chain, not just particularly nuclear. So while we really focus on the core capabilities and strengths, it's really up to, I wouldn't want to say what Kazakhstan should be thinking about. I'm sure, as we saw in the presentations earlier, that a number of issues and initiatives have already been taken or currently in progress or currently being evaluated. It's really important for any country to think about its true North Star and match it with the core capabilities, understand where these shared goals, mutual interest are, and build a trusted, credible infrastructure where we're all leveraging on each other's capabilities, and that sort of builds on that strategic interdependence there. I hope that sort of sums up what you were intending to ask as well.
Yep, Aldiyar, maybe you can also add from the perspective of the association.
Thank you. That's, I think, really interesting opinions by my colleagues who spoke previously, and From my part, I would say that there is plenty of uranium in the world which is yet to come online, which is yet to be produced. The matter is the price of the uranium that is going to be available. So right now we're using up the maybe cheaper reserves that are there, but in case there's a scarcity of uranium supply, then the market will just make the price higher when you have different deposits, other deposits coming into production, when you have vast uranium reserves that are accumulated in the world, even within the investment funds worldwide, which will be maybe trigger their exit strategies for the investment funds. And answering the question with the other parts of the nuclear fuel cycle, I believe this is a place where Kazakhstan has great opportunity to become an important player in the world, given our power within the uranium mining sector and our previous history of producing nuclear fuel. We have access to uranium conversion and enrichment right now already, and it's just a matter of maybe the international cooperation with other players in the world, and Kazatomprom might be the partner of choice for other important players in the world who require the nuclear fuel or uranium for their own needs. So that's the matter of our fantasy and ability to manage the projects, I believe.
Thank you. Господин Дюсебаев, следующий вопрос к вам.
Mr. Dusibаyev, the next question goes to you. In your presentation, you introduced your vision or the model of potentially possible cooperation of Kazakhstan with other countries. In your opinion, what are the difficulties and challenges in the potential implementation of this model from the point of view of the financing? It is clear that the development of other stages of nuclear fuel cycle are quite intensive. And considering your experience of working with Turkish partners in the financing of these next stages and in general education, appearance of this partnership, to which extent it developed, which are sources of financing, and to which extent this model is applicable in other countries at the global level? Thank you for your question. I have to say that Kazatomprom possesses significant experience, and it proved in 2000 that competing companies, Kameka, Rosatom, and so on, and the territory of Kazakhstan, they have become our friends, they work together. This competition has been substituted with cooperation, and this is the best strategy. And here we demonstrate that we have to keep on moving in this direction, not to compete but cooperate. And the finances, now Turkish Republic says it will give everything they have. Funds, if compared to Kazakhstan, they have more financial opportunities than we are, and Rosatom is also prepared to do that, and they are trying to preserve the strategic positions in nuclear energy.
We are discussing it with many countries. We are inviting all the countries for cooperation, especially in the area of research and technology development. When I was the director of the institute, we had 20 mines in cooperation, but French mine and Canadian mine, so they didn't invest into the research. But we need to insist on that. Now, according to the law, every company should invest in R&D. And if there is technology, if there is a project, if as a company you have the technologies that then you have more image and you have to develop technologies.
And maybe a logical question will be addressed to Ashat. Considering that you represent national operator, would you please comment the question on the availability of technologies that Kazakhstan as national operator? What steps it takes? In your presentation, we have seen that the company in principle is analyzing the opportunities of presence in other stages of nuclear fuel cycle. Considering the above, what is your vision? What is the role of Kazakhstan in the developing architecture of energy security? What are the partnership models are currently the most efficient for Kazakhstan?
Thank you, Batagos, for the question. In general, Kazatomprom, as I mentioned earlier, as part of its new vision for the further development, envisages the following. First of all, we are envisaging the organic development. So when we will be reviewing the potential partnerships, participation, for example, is before reactor cycle. What we are talking about is that today's geopolitical challenges changed the structure of the processing of the nuclear fuel. And in that case, if there is an economic indicators, positive ones, in this case, we can consider to be engaged in this kind of projects. In my opinion, we should consider those partnerships where Kazatomprom will be considered not only as a financial partner, but we can share our experience, our competencies, and participate in these projects. Also, we are interested in such projects. For example, we are talking about enrichment. Then we need to be engaged in the projects where we will be having access to the technologies and in general, take into account the current market situation, everything is possible, and we are working, we are developing, we are professionally developing our stuff. For example, Olbar plant, our research institutes, actually Kazatomprom, we have a great competence not only in uranium production, extraction, but in the further processing of uranium. We have great experience, and we are looking at different kind of partnerships in this regard. Thank you very much.
Mr. Bobo, I would like you to add to the question that I'm directing to Aldiar. You've covered the NPP that's potentially to be built in Kazakhstan. You've mentioned that it's going to be a backbone of the, it's very important for the industry. The question would be, what do you think is important for the country to develop? We have our own uranium mining, but what is important, there is a different perception actually of the NPP in the country. So what important in terms of the perception, social perception, in terms of the knowledge, in terms of the readiness of the staff, in terms of the expertise? We have a great expertise in uranium mining, but it's a different scale and a different completely different people who should run the NPP. So the question to you would be, what do you think the country should do now, in your opinion, as a representative of the industry, industrial association, how the country is ready, and what the country should do in the near future to be ready for running the NPPs?
That's a great question, actually. And just quick answer, all of the above that should be developed, but frankly speaking, we are not in a bad position right now. We have some experience which also can be a curse for us as well as a blessing, because we have the competence in uranium mining, and we also may think that that this experience can be extrapolated for all other areas of nuclear industry and nuclear sector. But unfortunately, it's not. And first of all, is the local capacity building in terms of the competence of the knowledge of the teams that are responsible for the nuclear energy program implementation. then, of course, we need to not only think of this project as some solution to our energy problem, to the deficit of energy that is very real for us, but also as the project that will enhance the industry, the whole industrial complex or a cluster, as the president calls it, because it's a great locomotive or a driver for all the adjacent industries to develop, as well as, it's a great opportunity for Kazatomprom, in my own opinion, because it can help develop the nuclear fuel cycle involvement. And maybe it's not only the production of the fuel, but also the fuel components, because in order to achieve the true energy independence, there is not only uranium in a fuel assembly. There is also gadolinium, or there is also chromium that is, the coating of the tubes. And there are many metals that we need to have. And it's not only the metal mining, but it's also the processing of these metals and the production of end product in order to achieve that and in future export that. These are the things that we may look into. There are many different things that we can look into, and the rare earth metals are a really important thing. And I'm really happy that they are now in the strategy for Kazatomprom, because Kazatomprom is a national operator not only for uranium but also for the rare earth metals. And now the geopolitical situation, as my colleague tells you, it's calling for us to concentrate on very attractive market segments that have not been covered before. And Kazatomprom is in a great position, or other companies, private investors who are willing to, work in a, I would say that still mining attractive country here. So there is a great opportunity to develop the whole cluster within using such a big project of an NPP. One MPP is about 15 billion with 2 reactors inside. We're planning to build 3 MPPs, which is about 50 billion US, and there is a great usage of materials that are going to be needed there. So I hope this answers your question, that we need to first develop our own knowledge. Second is to develop adjacent industries, and third is to develop the exports of these things. Thanks.
Thank you. I guess that's would be the last. Oh, yeah, we have a question from the audience. Yes.
Проверка. Добрый день.
Hello. Thank you very much for very interesting speakers. My name is Artem. I am from Sky Company. I have a question to Ashat. Maybe other speakers will complement to the answer. The question is the following. Kazatomprom is the recognized leader in ESG introduction, and this approach has a long-term impact, will allow to get a long-term money access, reducing risks, increasing competitiveness in the Western countries. The companies are assessing the role of ESG, but they are assessing long-term, short-term impacts. What can you recommend to other companies, how they can be closer to the achievements of Kazatomprom in ESG introduction? Thank you for the question. In general, I came to the company quite recently. I have been working in Kazatomprom a bit more than 1 year, but actually this work has been in line, ongoing for about 10 years, and we are talking about environmentally friendly company and operations, because we are talking about ISR activities that is mostly environmentally friendly method, let's say. What did we do for the last decade? We have the national strategies and priorities priorities for the country. First of all, we are streamlining our strategies with the national strategies because we need to follow the national strategies, helping to implement the national strategies. Secondly, we are actively implementing international standards. For example, we are talking about financial reporting standards, FRS. For example, 1 year ago, we applied one standard. Now we are applying 3 standards in financial statements. We are trying to get new ratings. We are improving our indicators. We are working with our partners, and we understand. So what we need to improve in our company. So that's why there is a continuous improvement ongoing in our company. For example, decarbonization strategy, carbon neutrality strategy. All these aspects are included in our development programs, and we have the specific plan of actions, how we are going and what we are going to achieve. And when we're meeting with our portfolio companies, they're asking the same questions. And some of the companies are just at the beginning of this way of ESG implementation. In any case, if you want to achieve our indicators, you need to work steadily. You need to use phased approach to implement all the things related to ESG. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Are there any questions from the audience? Если есть еще вопросы у аудитории. Если нет, на самом деле вопросов...
If there are no questions, actually I have a lot of questions because all the presentations were interesting.
Unfortunately, we have limits in terms of the time. Thank you all the speakers for very informative presentations. I personally enjoyed listening to all the expertise and information that was provided. As always, if anyone will have any follow-up questions, I think the details of all the speakers can be found on the MINEX of these events website. So please feel free to ask any questions that might arise. Once again, thank you, gentlemen, for a very informative session. I hope that was useful not only for us, but for the audience as well. Thank you.
Kazakhstan is a major player in the nuclear industry, contributing 43% of global uranium production in 2022 and holding 12% of the world's uranium reserves. Despite this significant contribution, the country's involvement has primarily been limited to supplying raw materials. However, Kazakhstan aims to leverage its vast uranium resources to develop a comprehensive nuclear energy sector, encompassing uranium mining, fuel production, and potentially the manufacturing of reactor components. This strategic shift aligns with Kazakhstan's broader goals of achieving carbon neutrality by 2060 and addressing domestic energy shortages. Currently reliant on coal for about 70% of its electricity generation, the country faces mounting pressure to diversify its energy mix and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Nuclear power emerges as a viable solution, offering consistent baseload energy with minimal carbon footprint. Plans for multiple nuclear power plants, including one in the Almaty region, are underway. Featuring industry leaders, the session will address critical topics like Kazakhstan's role in the global nuclear renaissance, sustainable development strategies, and international cooperation in nuclear technology. This dialogue underscores Kazakhstan's ambition to redefine its role in the global nuclear landscape while navigating geopolitical complexities and ensuring sustainable growth.